Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Raw Men. This is going to be a little bit different than what we usually do because while the normal premise of the show is to highlight people who are doing something good to try to fix things, we don't normally complain about what's going on. But today we do have to throw in a little bit of a complaint while we also high-five people who are doing something about it. So recently in San Antonio, Texas, the mayor there, Mayor Ivy Taylor, made some disparaging comments against unbelievers, people who do not have a relationship with their imaginary friend, I mean their creator. And she said that makes them both broke and broken. So here to address that, besides my wife, Lilandra, I also have Phil Session. He's a coordinator of Austin Atheists Helping the Homeless. He's volunteer with the San Antonio Atheists Helping the Homeless. And we have Nick Lee, who, Nick Lee will be joining us shortly. We're waiting on him to come in. He is a senior advisor to Freethinkers Association of Central Texas, also known as FACT. And then we have Sean Rivera, president, Secular Student Alliance at UTSA and board member, Freethinkers Association of Central Texas.
Mouthful.
And what's that?
It's a mouthful.
Yep. And Vicki Gettman, Executive Director of South Texas Atheists for Reason and Texas State Director of American Atheists. How you all doing?
Not bad.
Very well, very well.
On this thing where Mayor Poison Ivy supposedly had said these disparaging comments, I just want to address a couple of things on that. The quote that she made, this was like 3 weeks ago when she originally said this at some private mayoral meeting somewhere, and then somebody aired the video of it, so that in the last few days it's all blown up, right coincidentally at the same time as early voting began.
Very proud.
Yeah, which is certainly not going to be advantageous for her. One of the many things that she said about that was that the video of her making these comments was intentionally edited so as to be misleading. Now, Nick, wasn't that didn't you show a blog post with that entire hour-long interview uncut?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the full comments aren't any better. The issue that she seems to take with it is that we highlighted sort of the most egregious portion of it, but that's the summation of it. I mean, she's talking about homeless programs and doing things to help people who are part of systemic poverty and address those issues. But she said, at the core of it, I think it's broken people. I mean, the quote isn't out of context. The quote is, to me, it's broken people not being in a relationship with their creator, and therefore not being in a good relationship with their families and with their communities and not being productive members of society. That's there's nothing out of context there. She answered the question.
Well, just for a bit more context than we've already given it for anybody that hasn't already read this, the question put to her was, what did she consider to be the core cause of generational poverty?
Right, exactly. The root cause of generational poverty.
And so her answer to that is broken people, which she then defined as broken people are people that do not have a relationship with their creator.
Yep.
Now, when she was addressed on this later, and she called out for it, she says that what she means is that she believes in eternal sin or original sin, so we are all broken until we forge a relationship with God. So we're all broken. If that's the case, then why is it that if we're all broken, then why aren't we all poor? If that's supposed to be the cause of generational poverty, how do you have generational poverty if not having a religious belief or a connection with your creator do you have generational atheists in San Antonio, Texas? Where do we have multiple generations of poor people who are non-religious? Wouldn't you say statistically, I mean, I'm sure we can verify this, that statistically, the vast majority of all the poor people in San Antonio are certainly going to be religious generation after generation. Is that not correct? I mean, that's a verifiably accurate statement, isn't it?
I believe so.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at religious rates as they relate to GDP and development and global development index figures, the least religious countries in the world tend to be the most prosperous or the least the ones with least poverty. So it doesn't make any sense what she's saying. I don't know that we can sort of prove anything about generational poverty with an atheist. I don't know that anyone's actually studied that. But her statement, her clarification didn't improve things. In fact, it just made it worse, because she's doubling down and then saying that it's, dishonest. It's a politically motivated attack. No, these are your words. Literally all it would take is an apology. And
the allegation that it was intentionally edited.
Right. Yeah.
You showed the whole thing.
Yeah, no, and every news outlet that's covered this has shown the whole thing. This is the other thing that I don't understand. She started out with, when she answered the question, she didn't just immediately launch into a semi-tirade against atheists. She said, wow, we could be here all day. This is a complicated question. Leave it at that. if you've been talking about this stuff, I think anyone who looks at poverty, this is something that I think a lot of us who are involved in politics, who are involved in policy, this is certainly one of the biggest concerns and biggest issues that's facing our country. Yes, it's complicated. And so to then say it's very complicated, but it boils down to Jesus. Come on, give me a break. That's not productive.
Well, going on what you said a moment ago, when you look at the least religious countries, those tend to be the most prosperous. And even within this country, if you look at the most religious states, they also tend to be the poorest. Mississippi is a perfect example of this. Right. So, if I were on the stage, I wonder, it would be equally inappropriate, I think, for me to say, as she did, oh, you're speaking to somebody who represents, what was it, Campus Crusade for Christ or whatever it was. Well, then let me just put it out there that, that it's, a belief in religion is what causes people to be poor. I could actually support that statement with statistics that would at least be in line with the assertion. I don't think that would be accurate, and I don't think it would be appropriate, but I could actually defend that comment.
Right.
But that's where I initially got kind of tripped up on this when I initially heard about the comment that was made, because as you mentioned before, I'm the coordinator for the Austin Atheists Helping the Homeless, and I also volunteer down here with Vicki with the San Antonio Atheists Helping the Homeless down here. And when she said that, it just really threw me for a loop, because we go down here every month distributing toiletries, distributing items, clothing, books to those that are experiencing homelessness in San Antonio and in Austin. And in both cases, predominantly what you see are people that are of some type of religious faith. Sometimes, you'll have people that come up and say, oh, well, God bless you, as they're moving through the line. Or, thank God that y'all are out here. Or some are even so faith-driven that even when they see the sign that says Atheists Helping the Homeless, that makes them kind of step back a little bit and say, like, whoa, like what are these people doing out here? It's a big thing for them. I was just this morning, I was at the Haven for Hope here in San Antonio, touring the San Antonio Food Bank building there, and speaking to some of the residents of the Haven for Hope down there. And they have a non-denominational chapel there on site. And the tour guide, she was saying that it was very busy. It's busy almost all the time. It was busy while we were there. We couldn't even go in because it was in use, on a Thursday morning on that side. And so the people that we ran into, there was an individual, he was a Navy vet that had fallen off the wagon, really couldn't find a job, couldn't find his way out. And so he was helped by the programs there at Haven for Hope. But in the midst of him telling me his story, he also gave a big attribution to his belief in God and a deity. And he was like, this is what kept me through it. And so I'm looking at that and looking at her statement, and her statement doesn't match up with reality at all. It doesn't match up with the reality that we see when we serve those experiencing homelessness in either city. Even when I helped out in Dallas a little bit, the same thing. And so it was just so contrary to what we see in reality that I was really questioning what made her say that statement. Was it just a political motivation? Did she think it was just easy points that she can score with the crowd that she was trying to please on that side? Because it really doesn't seem to match up with what we see out in the real world.
Yeah, out there, they're always, when they see that we're atheists, they'll say, oh, I'll pray for you. We have so many people stop and proselytize, like get really loud and start with the prayers. Some of them even have Bibles they're reading out of, and we don't engage them. We just let them go about their business, and ultimately they'll walk away because they're not getting any responses from us. But the majority of people that come through our lines, we had 180 last month, are definitely religious.
Yeah, it's almost like poverty has nothing to do with necessarily with someone's religiosity. It's almost like things happen to people regardless of whether or not you believe in God. And
Right.
Faith in God doesn't prevent you from falling victim to either acute poverty or systemic poverty. It certainly doesn't help you out of necessarily any of those things. It just sometimes these cycles continue, and there are very complicated reasons for that. But religion is almost certainly not a contributing factor to lifting people out of poverty, except insofar as there are occasionally communities that offer support to people. And whether or not that has anything to do with their God belief, clearly it doesn't, because there are groups out there like y'all's who are engaging in the sort of activism and support that's necessary to help people who are in poverty. So I think what you said about it being a cheap way to score political points is exactly what it is. We saw this during the presidential campaign. I went up to New Hampshire and followed around presidential candidates during the primary season up there, and they played to the audience. And she was in a crowd that had lots of religious groups that were wanting to help out or wanting to get on the mayor's good side. And so she tried to score points. The problem is that politicians think that the only way to score points or the only way to talk about their faith is to denigrate people who are different from them. And we need to send a message that that's not the case, that you can talk about religious faith, you can talk about the way that it impacts your own life without necessarily attacking atheists and even other people who are of a different faith. I mean, she's not just denigrating atheists here. She's denigrating people who have a different form of religious belief. And that at a certain point in our culture, and a certain point in our country's political system, that has to, we have to move past that. We're obviously not there yet, though.
I've been advocating for some time as part of the Atheist Out program to get people to understand what atheist means, and that most of the country really doesn't know. But if you were to ask the question, are you convinced that an actual deity really exists? My estimation, and this is based on a number of other polls as well, is that about a third of the country would be atheist. And then what I'm seeing is that 1/3 of the country really is non-religious by some label or other. So what she's in the article that I was reading, the first one about this comment that she made is actually disparaging 35% of the population of Texas, according to this article. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's a significant population. I mean, atheists actually do outnumber Catholics at this point. So at some point, you got to start paying attention to that we're not just this. We're not a freak show out there. We're a significant portion of the voting populace.
Yeah, and I think that's the challenge, because I highly doubt that if she recognized that non-believers of all ilks, if she recognized it as a substantial voting bloc that could potentially damage her chances of re-election, then she may have rethought that statement that she put out there. But that's kind of the problem with kind of what you were saying, trying to advocate and push that out there, that we are a substantial voting bloc. We do pay attention. We have a higher probability of having a higher education. There's a lot that comes with that, but it's still not really recognized in a lot of political circles, that there are a huge group of non-believers, and that we do listen and pay attention and do vote, and we can affect the outcomes of a lot of these political contests if we choose to go out and voice our opinion at the ballot box.
No, I'd love to see that. I would love to see where people begin to petition our vote because we actually make a voting difference. That would be a good thing to see. Yeah. Certainly that hasn't happened so far. If you look at everybody in every level of Texas government at the moment, it seems that nobody's been paying attention to us. But I'm obviously sincerely hoping for that to change in 2018.
I mean, this is the long game, right? This is something that we have to show by being visible. This is something that this sort of action that's being taken by the folks down in San Antonio and those of us at the national level, this is this is what it's all about, is raising that profile so that, we're never going to not have religious politicians. And when I say never, I mean, probably not in my lifetime, but, we're never going to have all atheist politicians, but, the sooner folks can realize that they don't need to denigrate us in order to score points with their religious people, the better. The interesting, you're talking about about a third of people, Aron. There was a really interesting study that was just put out a few weeks ago by some University of Kentucky psychologists, where they did a survey looking at the number of people who actually believe in God, and they got at it. They didn't just straight up ask them, because they think that there's some social pressure on people to not want to even tell an anonymous survey taker or survey giver that they're an atheist, or admit that they don't believe in God. So they kind of hid it and got at the question in a really interesting way. It's been talked about a lot on the blogosphere, so I'd encourage everyone to kind of take a look for that. But they estimated on the conservative side that like 26% of Americans don't believe in God, with an upward sort of error range of about 35%. They think that could be the upper bound of that number. And so that's a huge number. You're saying we could be the largest voting bloc. That's absolutely true. But one of the problems that we're seeing when you look at exit polling data is that atheists aren't turning out to actually go to the polls. So even though we do make up a larger percentage of the population than people think, we're largely a lot of younger people. We tend to be a little bit less engaged in sort of community type organizations, because one of the reasons that religious folks' participation rates in elections is so high is because they have things like social pressure, encouraging them to go out and vote. There's a person that talks to them every single week on Sunday saying, you need to go vote on this one particular issue, usually like abortion or about anti-LGBT stuff. We don't have anything like that. There's no atheist church. There's no Pope of atheism telling us how to go vote. So yeah, the rates are lower. But at a certain point,
Aron's not our Pope? I thought Aron was our Pope.
Yeah. We need to get him a cool hat if we're going to do that. But but yeah, there are certain things we want to replicate within the civic engagement that a lot of religious folks have been having for the last 30 years. There are things we want to replicate, but there are things we have no interest in replicating. We don't want to tell atheists how they should be voting. We don't want to threaten them with eternal damnation. Not that really works for our community, but yeah, it's something that we need to think about. The community building, the working together and speaking with a unified voice on certain issues. That's something that we absolutely should start to talk about, and the visibility is the first step to that. So I'm glad that we're shining a light on this.
Yeah, and it's also the as far as the political landscape is concerned, you have people that still regard atheists as this taboo phrase, or this term that there's still a lot of misconception that is out there, and so it's harder for politicians to reach out to say, oh, let me look at the atheist groups that are in, X city. I'm going to visit X city. Let me reach out to those groups, if they still have this misconception about what an atheist is, what an atheist believes, and what we do. Even though we're all unique, we're all individualistic, we all have our own things going on, but that aversion to the term itself still has a lot of weight and has a lot of power. And that's why I love when we go out to do helping the homeless, because we do get a lot of people that come up and ask, they may say, what is an atheist? Some of them will know what it is, and kind of what we're doing grates against the misconception that they have built into their mind about what an atheist is. And so it's also about bringing that clarity to political figures, so they know that we're not a population to be scared of. We're not evil. We're not baby eaters, et cetera, et cetera. We're an actual voting bloc that actually supports our community and tries to do good things. When I was at the Haven for Hope portion, they were asking, is anyone affiliated with any groups? And so I mentioned Atheists Helping the Homeless, and there was a group of 4 Mormons that were in the meeting as well. That kind of looked. There was also a pastor there as well. I didn't catch the denomination of his church that they had mentioned, but they kind of were taken aback a little bit as I started speaking about some of the things that we do and what I was there to look around for and participate with. And so those type of interactions, those community interactions, letting people know that we're out here and we actually do stuff is a very invaluable thing, in my opinion, to turning that political tide to make atheists a more prominent and necessary voting bloc that political people that are running for office actually want to reach out to.
Yeah, I want to address something that, just at first, let's approach what she said about people being broken because they don't have this belief. How are we possibly broken in that we don't have what we all, I think, agree is an imaginary friend? From our perspective, if you don't have an imaginary friend, then you don't have a real relationship with real people either, right? Obviously, that's the first misconception. Atheists clearly have very strong ties with each other, with all y'all, with each of our families, and so on. And none of this has anything to do whatsoever with poverty.
And most of us still have religious family members, so it's not as if we are isolated from religious people and we're just this, subsect over here that are just broken and can't do anything. It just doesn't make sense to me. One of the things that she said when she said we aren't productive members of society, I would really, really like to know what her definition of productive members of society is, because the group that I'm with, South Texas Atheists for a Reason, we go out at least 3 times a month. We have steady activities where we do the food bank on the first Saturday. We help the San Antonio River Authority a lot. And then the last Sunday of the month is when we go and help the homeless. And in between there, we're finding other things to do that could help anybody. We've visited elderly in the retirement communities for Valentine's Day one time. We have different holidays we share together. But what do you mean when you say not productive members of society? Was, some of us being in the military not a good enough job for you? I mean, what does she mean when she says productive members of society? And
you didn't even mention in that list of things that you do, you didn't even mention what you do in or for the military.
Absolutely, you're right. So every Sunday we go out. Phil's joined us now. He goes every other weekend, and we mentor the airmen in basic training at Lackland Air Force Base. And we don't, and I don't want people to get the impression that you're just like people who proselytize and go out and talk to people on a park bench. What you're talking about is hundreds of what is the word? Trainees. Okay, so you have hundreds of people coming to see you every Sunday. Okay. Yes, and we're actually in an auditorium now that seats, we can only have 1,000 people in it. And so we've been turning people away. We reach maximum capacity. And then there's people, last weekend, there was 54 that we had to say, I'm sorry, we can't get you in. The fire code will not let us let you in. And you need to go let them know that your spiritual needs were compromised this Sunday. So they're looking at trying to find another location for us. But in an auditorium that seats 1,000, it's kind of crazy that they're looking for another venue. And obviously they're going to find something that we're going to have to go back to having 2 services to try to meet everyone. And I say from the beginning, I'm not proselytizing, I'm not a humanist evangelist, and we just do this introductory topics, one topic for 9 weeks about what it is and our purpose of just being positive members of society. That's the whole concept of why we're there, is to show there's a positive place for us. And it's just these quick introductory topics. So it's just really crazy to me that I really would like to know her definition of what a productive member of society, what does that mean, and what do they do?
There have been a couple of times in my life that I've had people address prejudices that I had that I didn't even understand that I had. That people whether it was blacks or whether it was Muslims or whatever, because I was raised in an extremely bigoted redneck kind of family, and I had these preconceptions and everything kind of fed into me, both by my family and also by our common media and so forth. So the first Muslim I ever met exactly fit the stereotype that I fully had come to expect of Muslims. But that when I went to college, the next 5 or so that I met didn't meet that stereotype at all, and it was a bit of a surprise. So I've had a number of times in my life where people have approached and corrected prejudices that, as I said, I wasn't even aware that I had, or judgments that I was making against people that I wasn't even aware that I was doing, and I've had those addressed. And I think that it's the best way to do that is to show a positive light, and on how to correct this issue. So on that note, how are we connecting with this politician? I mean, I know a number of people have written her. Has there been any response at all? Is there any means of actually communicating with Mayor Ivy Taylor?
Well, let's see. I mean, one thing that I'm working on is that petition, and I was really happy to see that American Atheists and I'm not sure if it was Freethink or I'm sorry,
Freedom from Religion.
Was it FFRF?
Yeah, they commented on it last night. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I'm glad to seeing that so many people are doing, parallel efforts to try to reach out to her, and I'm glad that all of those efforts are, in the end, they all have the same core message, which is meet us. Reach out to us if you have any issue with us, if you have a bone to pick, or if you have any misconceptions about us, then why don't you meet us and confirm or refute those ideas that you have about us. And I've actually been trying to get our representatives, or at least our local representatives, to meet with us for quite some time now. Coincidentally, one of the people, because I live in District 8 of San Antonio, I've actually been reaching out to the District 8 council member to meet with us for a very long time, and coincidentally, he is now one of her opponents in this mayoral race. And Ivy Taylor, her track record. I mean, I was somewhat surprised when I saw that the news blew up as much as it did, not because she doesn't deserve the criticism, but because at least, in the sphere that, all of us are involved in, I think we know exactly what Ivy Taylor is about.
Yeah.
I think she's made it very abundantly clear that she is anti-choice, anti-LGBT. She's buddies with Hagee, the San Antonio Family Association, which are the devil incarnate. They on their website, they have a tab that specifically is labeled homosexuals. I mean, I won't go on a tangent about them, but
I have my own tab on their website.
Right.
yeah, you have your own tab. Also, yeah, homosexuals, and directly underneath that is a tab that says pregnant and scared, which everyone can, that's a trap, a horrible pregnancy crisis center trap. So with this history that she has, I'm glad that it's gained as much attention and traction as it has, because this is long overdue. But just going back onto the efforts that us and or several organizations are taking to reach out to her, I like to stay hopeful that we'll have a response. But given not only her history of opinions towards all those communities that I just mentioned and our own, I mean, everyone here who lives in San Antonio could probably back me up on this. She also, one of my biggest grievances with her is she will turn her nose up at just about any opportunity to meet and have a discussion with any of the communities that she does not approve of. The most clear of which has been historically the LGBT community. She hasn't attended any of the forums that have been held by, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think Politiqueers, a number of other organizations, I believe, have held forums. I know that yesterday there was a March for Mayor that was organized actually by a high school senior who's their first time voting.
Sean, I want you to turn your camera on and off, because I'm not. Is everybody else able to see Sean?
Okay.
I see him fine.
Yeah, we're
You,
good.
you can see him when he's talking?
Yeah.
I don't know why it goes black screen for me. I don't know what's going on with that.
Well, yeah, Vicki and Phil went black for a while.
Yeah,
for me.
so you were talking about how she's turned up her nose at so many different communities, and you said that she's good friends with John Hagee. That's illustrative enough, right there.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
any associate with John Hagee is
Yeah, that definitely gets the message across. So, like I said, I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm hopeful that at the very least her silence will send enough of a message. Now, of course, if through some very improbable chance, she feels the heat enough to give us a response, and even less likely a positive response or an affirmative response, actually going through with our request to have a meeting. Well, I'm more than prepared to have that meeting. Like I said, I've been trying to have these meetings for quite some time, and depending on what happens on May 6th on the election, hopefully, if she gets voted out of office, I am very, very prepared to extend that same invitation to Manuel Medina and Ron Nirenberg, her two opponents, who are perfectly fine people. Like I'm very familiar with Medina. I've done a lot of work with him, and Ron has also demonstrated to be a fine person who I'm sure is supportive of our community and all of the other communities. But I'd still like to extend that invitation to say, well, here are our grievances with our previous mayor. Would you like to reassure us with your presence that you will be different?
Do we have any kind of communication like that, or is there any indication from either of these other two candidates for any of these other communities?
Medina has definitely shared a number of the articles. I know in general, with my experience with him, he's, at least as far as policies and various other things go, he seems to be in support of, the real meaning of religious freedom and, LGBT.
Either of these candidates ever reach out to the LGBTQ community or
I know that Medina.
Secular politics at all?
I'm sorry, one more time?
Did either of them promote secular politics at all?
Yeah, I mean, I guess my short answer would be yes. Both of them definitely seem to be in support of separation of church and state. I know that Medina attended the March for Mayor yesterday, which was
with the LGBT.
Yeah, it was largely centered around LGBT equality. Actually, going back on Ivy Taylor's amazing ability to turn her nose up at anything, the organizer, the high school senior, reached out to her for the sake of fairness, reaching out to every candidate, and said, hey, we're having this, a march. Well, she did her pitch, the March for Mayor. One of her staffers responded relatively enthusiastic. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm really glad you took the initiative for this. That's really great. Then she responds by saying, yeah, it's going to be really great. It's going to, promote LGBT equality, all of this. And she immediately gets a response saying, Mayor Taylor does not want to share her opinions on that subject. I'm paraphrasing. But, and then communication cut off at that point.
Well, this is a person that is now representing other people, right? I mean, as a mayor, you're supposed to, it's not just about your personal opinion.
You can't choose your constituents.
Yeah, and I'm going to say something about, during the primaries last year, the Democratic primaries, a lot of people were complaining about Hillary for making the statement that she had a private persona and she had a public persona. And I actually admired this, where she said that she wasn't personally in favor of gay marriage, but she's going to vote for gay marriage because she knows that if she's representing people who demand that she support gay marriage.
Yeah, same with Tim.
If you don't have a popular opinion, but you're representing the populace, then you had better put your opinion aside and represent the populace.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Foundation Beyond Belief. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, we also, because of all the volunteer stuff that we do, we report to and kind of let Foundation Beyond Belief, the Beyond Belief Network, know what we're doing. And so because of, they knew how much work that we do, they reached out to us. And so I collaborated with them and Spectrum Experience. And we also penned a letter to her saying, about how she's misjudging people and that we would love for her to come out to any of our events. We sent out an invitation saying, please, these are our next 3 events. We have 2 this weekend. We have 1 next weekend. Please join us and see what we're about. And we suspect we won't hear from her, but you know, we at least put that out there to, hey, come, you know, one of them's the food bank, we're helping the homeless, and we're going to go help clean up the river and make a path at one of the sanctuaries. So any of them, come out to any of them and just see what we do.
Yeah, I would love. Oh, sorry.
Is there any impact that this negative publicity is going to have on her campaign?
Oh, I have no doubt. I would go and say definitely. Before, I wasn't too sure if it would the election would go into a runoff. I thought it would probably be, you know, relatively close between you know, Medina and Nuremberg might, you know, be able to get very close to 50, you know, with their combined support. But at this point, I have no doubt that there's going to at least be a runoff. That Taylor will not win right out. Or at least, you know, anything's possible in politics. I mean, you know, I have no faith in comfort anymore in the political process. But
we learned that a few months ago, right?
Yeah. So, but I would like to think that if not before, now she will. If she does continue to be mayor, it will not be without being forced into a runoff. And I think just with my interaction and, you know, participation with the Democratic Party, I would like to think that whoever ends up her opponent in the runoff, I think people will be able to swallow the differences in general and unite enough to beat Ivy Taylor, especially with this negative publicity she's gotten.
You said your participation with the Democratic Party. I don't think I don't remember mentioning anything about that in the introduction to the show. Can you flesh that out a little bit?
Oh yeah, sure. I'll give you my resume. Yeah, where do I start? Well, I'm the vice president of another organization on campus besides the Secular Student Alliance called Progressive Democrats. You know, we're it's basically like a Dementor style, acquire party positions, shift, you know, the average, you know, their ideology is far in the direction that we would like as possible. So I have that. I'm a precinct chair for the precinct that this one that I'm in right now. Most of my buddies who are, you know, officers in that same organization are also precinct chairs. So we kind of have a nice, I'm not sure exactly what the descriptor word would be, but we have a whole nice block that is run purely by millennials. And I do a lot of volunteering on lots of campaigns. So specific, like I'll go and do a little shout out for Rick Trevino. He's somebody who's running for District 6. Incredibly, he's one of the very few people in any of the races, you know, any of the 10 city council districts or the mayoral race that I can get behind without any kind of, you know, bad feeling in my stomach, like I'm compromising any values.
Are there any other Democratic candidates in any other districts that you might be able to advocate?
Yeah, sure. Oh boy, let's see. Well, in District 1, there's Robert Faria. He's I believe him and Rick Trevino are both the organizers of, I believe they organized something called SA for Sanders during the election season. They also, I think, are the founding leaders of San Antonio Progressive Alliance. Both really, really great guys, working class people. You know, Rick Trevino is one of the few people running who's not he's not a lawyer or a businessman. He's just a school teacher. John Courage, he's running for District 9. Really good guy. Ezra Klein is running for District 10. Oh, who else? There are more. Mariana Sanchez. Kind of exciting for me. She's 21 years old. She's running for city council in one of our smaller I don't know what to call it, it's Leon Valley, one of the small towns contained within San Antonio. And she seems to be doing very, very well too. So I'm really excited about a lot of these elections. The mayoral race, I have some mixed opinions on, but I want Ivy Taylor out.
Yeah, and going back to what you were talking about is if her comments would affect her re-election efforts. I've been watching as people like at my job and other people that I see around the community even talk about it at all. But it's interesting because one of the major newspapers out here in San Antonio is the San Antonio Express, and so they endorsed Ivy Taylor quite some time ago. And it's very curious. If you go to their website, they happen to have 0 stories about her comments that she's made on the it's been. Was there something? Did you want to say something, Sean?
I'm not. Please correct me if I'm. I'm sorry. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe that they actually came out with one story. It may be Express News. It might be another one of our local papers.
San Antonio Current has been keeping on top of it. But
yeah, they've definitely been doing a good job. But I do feel like recently I saw an Express News article that a lot of people got mildly upset about because of their endorsement of her. It seems that at least one of their journalists wrote an article, not fully rationalizing it, but trying to, when I read it, it was rationalizing. It was a lot of.
Are they smoothing this over?
Yeah, well, so the journalist who wrote it is a commentator, and he's the person who moderated the original panel where she made the comments, and he was basically saying, here's the context to it. You have to understand, she was speaking to a religious audience, and so it's totally fine, and there weren't nobody groaned, nobody complained at the time, so it's really interesting that people are bringing it up now. It's like, well,
of course a religious audience wouldn't complain about that at the time.
Right.
Yeah, so, and they say in the article, because it came out yesterday and I read it as well. They said, well, you have to understand, in the context of Christian theology, broken people just means somebody who's lost their relationship with their creator. So it's totally fine. Well, no, some of us want to leave religion and just be done with it, and we don't appreciate our elected officials who are supposed to be representing all of us saying that we're broken. It might have a word, it might have a meaning in your particular religious parlance. That doesn't mean it's common
any reality
meaning.
At all outside of that.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that its common language meaning is any different. It still means that you're calling us broken, and we're not.
Even using that Spicer logic, still by extension, would that not make us more broken than this standard that they've set for broken people? Will we not be, dramatically more, higher on the broken scale, or whatever metric they're using to measure brokenness?
Well, I'm glad at the very least that they at least published something about it, because when this was really blowing up, the San Antonio Current, one of the other local newspapers, they're all over the story. They have multiple stories about it, kind of going in depth with it, what are the reactions, et cetera, et cetera. And the Express News was curiously quiet when the real blow-up was kind of happening. And so it's interesting that they came out with it, but I'm not surprised that they did come out with a more softening type of story, because they look stupid. Sorry for using that word. Sorry about that. I'm sure they didn't want to look like they were ignorant in their choice of, endorsing her for mayor. And so to publish an article that's disparaging potentially to her candidacy, but by the same token that raises another issue, to say that, okay, if you endorse someone, does that mean that you will not publish a bad story about them during this time, even though it may be newsworthy, that it may be pertinent to your readers, to the local individuals to actually hear about this new news, that whatever that happens to be? Does that mean that you're going to try to hide it until they actually get into office? Like, does that mean that you have another legislation? It raises some more questions, some ethical questions about their journalism, because even people, I was at HEB down here, and somehow this conversation got started while I was waiting in line. I'm not sure how that originally happened.
You always have conversations like this. You don't know how they got started.
Random strangers in stores.
Always,
especially in HEB. Yeah, especially in HEB.
But you know, we're all standing there in line, whatever. And somebody mentioned Ivy Taylor, and I know I mentioned those comments, and they had said that they hadn't read them, but that they had saw them like on their Facebook feed from other news sources, and that's how they found about it. And I did bring up the fact that Express News didn't show anything, and they were like, why wouldn't they do that? And you know, and I was saying, like, hey, they've actually endorsed her, so that may be a reason. So we were just kind of having this this kumbaya in line, talking about about newspapers and the way of their reporting can really affect the outcomes of these races, and how the Express News decided not to really address the issue until way after the fact. And as you said, like, if this article is what you're referring to, a more softening article, something that doesn't show like, oh, it's gonna be all right. You know, she didn't really mean that. That's to me a bit disingenuous on their part. But
yeah, you got to hide that buyer's remorse, man.
Ah.
Yeah.
Sweep it under the rug. Didn't happen. Fake
Okay,
news.
so let's assume then that two sides of an argument. I mean, if Ivy doesn't get it, I mean, we're looking at a realistic possibility that it's one of two people who are, if I'm understanding this correctly, both of them are more friendly toward secular values, LGBT, and other such minority concerns than.
Undeniably. Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Right, now, what happens?
Well, you know, the bar is pretty low, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens then if the incumbent wins out?
At least personally for me, I continue on with the petition and various efforts to continue or promote. Sorry, let me gather myself. Stay angry. Hashtag stay angry. I will continue. I'll continue to speak out. I will continue efforts to try to get her to have a meeting with us. Every time we are met with silence, I will continue to, push that as an indictment on her character. What else?
Well, that's where I really want to see us. I want to see politicians held accountable for the things that they say. I mean, one of the activists in Amarillo brought a situation to me where they had a number of people that were running for, I think, Texas State Senate, that were all assembled within one of their auditoriums. And this guy representing an atheist group stands up, and I asked this group of people, how are you going to support your atheist constituents? And there's a bit of confusion as all these candidates are glancing at each other, trying to figure out which one of them is going to field that question. And finally, one of them says, "Our constituents."
I'm sorry. Somebody
muted me.
Sorry, that was me. I hit the wrong button. Sorry about that.
Stop that.
Could you repeat that?
Yeah. Well, what happened was these candidates, of course, they don't. None of them want that question, and they're all looking around at each other. And then finally, one of them said, "Our constituents are Christians," meaning they just dismissed us entirely. And I don't want to see any more of that. When you're talking about 1/3 of the population, we are not going to be dismissed that way.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds a lot like the people, in that was the president of Chechnya, who just said, "Oh, we can't possibly be rounding up LGBT people. That's not something we're doing because we don't have LGBT people here in Chechnya." They said the same thing in Iran when they were targeting atheists and LGBT people as well. It's ridiculous to think that they think that we're not there. So what we have to do is, exactly what Sean said. We have to stay angry. We have to stay engaged. American Atheists is nonpartisan. We want good governance. We want people who represent all of us. We want people who are conscious of the fact that this huge constituency exists. But we have to work with whoever is there. We have to work with whomever is in office. And the way that we can do that, the way that we can improve things in the long term, is to stay engaged. And, you know, if Ivy Taylor wins, so be it. We need to be showing up at her office, requesting meetings every single week until she acknowledges us and acknowledges the problem of the statement that she said. If she loses, we still need to keep the pressure on. We can't just say, well, we won, that's it. We need to continue to hold the other people accountable. You know, whether or not it's Medina or Nuremberg, we need to stay with it. We need to let them know that these sort of comments are unacceptable. And I believe I saw at least one of the other candidates made mention of this issue and said that her comments were inappropriate and that, you know, she should have phrased things differently. And I can't remember who it was. I know that Nuremberg was with her at the forum, but I don't remember if he is the one who commented on it. But that's good. That's a good pushback from someone who, you know, if it was from him, he didn't say anything in the moment, and I wish he would have. Even if it wasn't him who commented later, people need to stand up for this stuff because, you know, imagine those statements being made for literally any other group. If they had said that, you know, well, the root cause of poverty is race. Like, holy crap, could you imagine the firestorm, the literal nuclear explosion of outrage? Warranted, the warranted outrage for saying something like that. And, you know, obviously it's a slightly imperfect metaphor, but, you know, this is we are an identifiable group that is subject to distrust, that's subject to stereotyping and all sorts of mistreatment. We need to do better. We need to insist that our politicians do better. And the only way we can do that is by staying engaged. So I'm glad to see that all the groups in San Antonio who are, you know, really weighing in on this are doing so. And you guys are doing a fantastic job, you know, staying active in this. But we have to keep the pressure up. So.
If I could add something, there's 2 on-topic audience questions posted in the chat. I'm going to put them in our chat. And there's 4 people queued up to actually join us live to talk. So here they are. Eric Lopez says the evangelist, I think he's from Brazil, coalition is growing and is getting stronger and stronger. So many Fidels are voting for them. I'm assuming he's meaning faithful. How can we make these people wake up and stop voting for religious reasons?
Well, I want to take issue with one thing. The evangelical coalition isn't growing stronger, and they aren't growing. They are shrinking. One of the biggest change that we're seeing, though, is that the evangelical Christian, white evangelical Christians in particular, in this most recent election, and I'm speaking primarily about national election trends, they're voting much more as a block. So it was something like 83%, and I could be off a percentage or two, voted for Donald Trump. These white evangelical Christians are voting in a much more cohesive way than ever before. They're almost voting like a small minority group, even though they still make up, 20-25% of the population. That's a big hill for us to climb when our participation rates aren't growing at the rate to match our growth in the general population. So if you look at the non-religious segment of the American population, it's gone from something like 16-19% up to like 20-25%, but the chunk of the voting block that we are has only increased from like 13% to 16%.
Well, they're voting like a minority because they're afraid they're about to become one.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. We're seeing pushback, so it's not that they're growing; it's that they're being more pure.
Black evangelicals and Hispanic evangelicals, as I understand it, were not voting predominantly for Trump. I think it was 60%. Was not for the Republican candidate.
Yep.
Lilandra, go ahead and bring in. You said that you have people waiting in queue to be on the show. Go ahead and bring in a couple of them.
Just one more thing for people who maybe this is really confusing. I think to some. Douglas Becker asked, "What is this broken person thing?"
Yeah.
Well, if you rewind to the podcast, that'll cover it.
Yeah, if you don't have an imaginary friend, you're dysfunctional, and therefore you can't have real real world friends either, and can't be productive.
Or even be happy. Like in some people's minds, can't be happy, can't live a fulfilled life. You're dark, you're depressed, you're mad at
Obviously hate your family.
it's just a very bad misconception that some people have. People have it to differing degrees. They have different opinions about what that means, but some can get a bit extreme on that side of what that broken is. So some people will tell me, like after one of my events or something like that, to say, you're just doing this to imitate, a church or a congregation or this, and why are you out there doing this? This can't be this is not your why is this fulfilling to you? You're saying that it is, but I think you're lying. That type of thing. So some people really have an issue getting around that misconception that they have.
You can further discuss for a second, and while I get people ready, if you come on to talk, the people that I'm bringing on, can you stay on topic and respect for time and the other people in line? So go ahead and discuss, and I'll be right back with somebody.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I'm sure there are atheists out there somewhere who are these unfulfilled, depressed sorts. But I go to an awful lot of conferences and meetups and so forth, and I meet atheists everywhere. I've never met anyone who fits this generalization of what they think all these atheists are supposed to be. Are we all exceptions to that rule?
And let alone that there are people that are faith, that have some type of faith that are in that situation now, that they feel depressed or broken, as they might say, or unfulfilled in their life. So
that's common, but I know a lot of people that are trained to be that way. That they're trained not to enjoy anything on this earth. Graham crackers. Those cinnamon and brown sugar graham crackers. They were originally designed to taste like Melba toast. They were originally designed to have no seasonings and no flavoring because they were designed by a religious advocate who did not want to enjoy life on this world. So he made this food that was bland and tasteless, because you're only supposed to enjoy what happens after this life. You're not supposed to enjoy this life. But I've heard a lot of Christians who told me that this life, this one life that we actually get, is not to be lived. It's not to be experienced. It's a painful, torturous prison that you're supposed to endure before you get the reward. Right. I'm sorry, no, this is the thing you get. You better enjoy it, because there isn't anything else.
Yeah, if people have time to look this up, I would strongly encourage them to look up the history and the writings of Kellogg. Yes. Kellogg is the guy who invented graham crackers, and a lot of the cereals and whatnot that are out there that they started with were designed, like Aron said, to intentionally be bland, because he thought that spicy or overly sweet or fatty foods caused bad humors. He's also one of the reasons that circumcision is so common in the United States, because he thought that it was we needed to proactively circumcise people so they wouldn't enjoy sexual activity, and specifically masturbating. So thanks a lot, Kellogg, for all that. You're a great guy.
You just completely ruined sugar frosted flakes.
Wow.
Here's Richard.
Yeah. Hey, I kind of new to this, so if I'm seeming a little lost for words, yeah. Hey, am I coming through?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I'm listening to like 3 different conversations right now, so I seem a little lost. I'm hearing an echo.
You probably need to mute your own whatever you're watching, just so you can hear us in
Turn
the chat.
your volume down or plug in a headphone.
Oh, let me turn off the other link. There. Silence. Aha. And of course, the other chat in Google Mail is going on at the same time. I'm also working with a corporation as a board member. Yeah.
You're at work.
I'm at work. I work from home, so as a software engineer.
Oh, okay.
So
what's your question?
My question?
Yeah, did you have a question?
No, Lilandra said, "Hey, you enjoy this chat?" I said, "Oh, sure, why not?"
Oh, okay.
What's your comment on the current topic?
You got to be more clear.
Okay, yeah, it feels strange because I used to live in San Antonio, and seeing this kind of craziness. I don't remember this kind of craziness of the last mayors that were there when I was there. It was the worst we had back in when I was living there. It was the mayor quitting office because he thought he was going to get nailed for adultery. That was Cisneros, I think it was. That's how far back I go. So how does this lady get voted into office? I don't know. She doesn't feel San Antonio.
Was it not? I believe that she was appointed as an interim mayor after Castro went, was appointed as the
HUD
housing
secretary.
development.
Yep.
That would explain a lot.
And I might, and correct me if I'm inaccurate here, I believe when she was appointed, it was under the understanding that she would not seek re-election. And
she is seeking re-election.
She did, yeah. And that's why she's, and there's Ivy. Like,
yeah.
Well, so she was initially appointed, I think it was back in 2014, and that was for an unexpired term. And in San Antonio, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the terms are only 2 years for mayors.
You're right.
It's a nonpartisan seat as well. So the challenge here is that this is a jungle primary, which means that basically everybody runs all at once. If nobody gets 50%, if nobody gets a majority, we go to the runoff, which is just 2 candidates. And so that's where we're at right now, is in that initial runoff. So she had initially said that she wouldn't run for mayor when her interim term expired back in 2015, but she already broke that promise. So that's not a new thing.
Right. San Antonio's mayoral politics have been weird. I remember one time it seemed like there was only 3 mayors, each one's alternating in the office. Cisneros, Cochran, or whatever her name was, and some other guy, and it was bizarre.
Well, again, correct me if I'm wrong. I believe that in her 2015 campaign, she ran against a former Texas state senator who was involved in that protest. It wasn't Vandeputty. Yeah. It wasn't. Yeah, she was like the sort of second person other than Wendy Davis in the Planned Parenthood protest on the floor of the Texas Senate when they were trying to pass that abortion ban.
I missed the context there. Was she for or against the abortion ban?
She was against it. She was protesting it with Wendy Davis.
Well, that's kind of strange. She seemed all right then, but now.
No. Sorry, the Leticia Vandeputty, who was Ivy Taylor's opponent.
Okay.
She was
Van Depute.
Depute. Is that Depute?
Right.
Yeah, that's the way I heard it.
Yeah, Ivy Taylor, when she was on the city council, voted against abortion stuff, voted against LGBT rights. So I think she's been remarkably consistent on these matters.
Right.
Was that all you had for us, Richard?
That was it. I was just kind of confused. It's been so long that I've been involved with anything to do with San Antonio politics. And yes, at one time I was involved down there, kind of loosely, but it's been almost 20 years now, so things kind of get lost.
All right, Lilandra, bring in our next.
If you're done, Richard, can you click the hang up thing? So
yes, I will.
There's a limit on how many people can be in the chat.
I know that. Yep, I'm leaving the call now.
All right. Now, Alfred needs to come in. Let me PM him again. He said he was ready, but just a second.
Can you just drag people in to the chat?
Oh,
I guess it's not Skype.
So one thing I would actually like to go and say back to the very, very first question from the person from South America, some area. Or one way to confront, growing religious right sentiment is just to make sure, or emphasis on intersectional activism, to understand that there are lots and lots of issues that are all intertwined, and just make sure that, for example, if anti-choice legislative action and a lack of respect for atheists come hand in hand. that along with, attacks against the LGBT community and all these things. So I think it's just important not to wall yourself off into one small subject, and to make sure that you're out there standing up for all the communities that are going to be under this umbrella attack. And then that's kind of leading by example, and the other communities like the LGBT community and pro-choice people will recognize and respect that, and they'll also in turn stand up for your rights as an atheist or a non-religious person.
That whole Wendy Davis thing was a frustrating thing because I canvassed for her. And
she was my very first vote.
Yeah, and every house that I went to, they say, "Oh, that's the abortion lady," and there's no way to explain, what else she has done or any other issue, like the other filibuster that she did in 2011, I think it was, and nobody cares. They're all single issue voters. Why can't we be? There's nothing that atheists can agree on, it seems, to make us single issue voters, even in a situation like that, where we would, it was so easy to pick Wendy Davis over Greg Abbott for governor of this state. Jeez. And we couldn't even get that together.
Actually, I have my my Wendy Davis poster right over there, if you can see it.
Dragonaut is having technical issues and is moving to another source, but Esther should be coming in soon. She just needs to click the link.
Gonna have a change of scenery.
Well, talking about the Brazil question, that it's a very difficult thing if you have a large population that I think Aron mentioned it earlier in this podcast, that if you're exposed, if you go to church, you go to a regular community center or whatever else, and you're regularly reinforced with whatever belief they want you to have, it's very difficult to get people to vote not with their religious body because they're exposed to it all the time. They have constant reinforcement by those around them, their community, the people they see every week or however often they go to that center. So what Sean mentioned about intersectionality, actually introducing yourself to these other groups and talking about issues that you can find common ground on, so that you can kind of expand their scope of what issues are out there. Because there may be an issue that you care about that they also may care a lot about, but they've been focused in their church life or however they're getting their information, that they're not being exposed to these other ideas. And so actually getting out there, putting yourself out there safely, of course, and talking to other people who don't share your religious belief or lack thereof, and talking about the issues that hopefully they might agree with you with, can help lead them to maybe vote a little differently than they may be told to out of their place of worship. But I'm not sure how it works over in Brazil, how nonpartisan churches have to be, or if that's even a requirement for them. On that side, I'm not sure how it works, but just getting out there and talking to people to spread that message and find some common ground on issues you find important, and hopefully they do too, that they may even vote against their regular church body that they've been exposed to all their lives. So, it's worth a shot, but it's very difficult to crack that shell if that's what they've been exposed to all the time from all walks of life. It's just a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah.
I was raised in a collection of different cultures, with my family and my peer group, that all considered, certain comments and behaviors and attitudes, I guess, to be socially acceptable, and those would not be things. I had to go through an adjustment period about what is socially acceptable now. I've had to change my perspective quite a bit since I was my 20s or thereabouts. I don't mean that it's just culture that has changed. I mean, I was in let's call it a counterculture, if you will, where certain jokes will fly there that shouldn't have flown even then.
I had a similar experience when I left home and went to the Army, even though I was already kind of leaving religion at that time. But even being exposed to so many people from so many different cultures and backgrounds, you don't, like you said, you don't realize the biases or whatever that you have towards people until it's in your face, and the people that you're meeting don't meet what you were told they would be. And so moving around, we lived in Europe for a while, experiencing other cultures really is an awakening that you can see for yourself what's really going on, and you don't have to listen to what people are saying.
Where's our extra guest, Lilandra? Where are they?
Esther's resetting, and Dragonaut says that he needs the mobile link, not the internal link, but I don't know how to get him a mobile link. I don't see anything in the dashboard.
I have no idea.
Bill, aren't you on your phone?
Yeah, I was fine.
You could log in with the link Arn gave you on your phone?
Yeah, the initial link that you sent, it opened up Google Hangouts on my phone and tossed me right into the video portion.
Yeah,
I don't see a mobile link anywhere, so not sure.
I don't know.
What
I
is
don't
it?
think it was. I think the phone just kind of recognized that it was a Google Hangouts link and then opened the app, and there it was.
Yeah, mine actually didn't at first. I had some trouble. It worked when the link was sent directly through Google Hangouts, but not when we were going through any other means.
I got
Yeah, no, I didn't.
Yeah, I'm not doing any more tech support for this thing.
Yeah.
So, Sean, I asked you a kind of a baiting question about the other candidates that you might be able to endorse, and I noticed that you didn't mention one from Senate District 2.
I'm sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was just focusing on city council. But yeah, no, it's really exciting to see you you getting out there, and I was really excited when I heard that you were running for that. Also, I'm not sure exactly which district, but I'm not sure if you're familiar with Danielle
Perez.
Yeah. Is that how you pronounce her name?
Pellet, I think.
Pellet, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, really excited for her too. So I know that she's running, I believe, for a district in Austin, I think. And
I think she's in Dallas. She's
okay,
been
she's
at like
probably in
almost
Dallas.
everything that I've gone to, all the political meetings that I've gone to here in the Dallas area, she's been there.
Okay, I'm probably wrong then. I met her in Austin. Okay. Yeah.
Well, I need to get as on board as she is. She's got like a staff of volunteers and all of that already. And
Nice.
I think I'm falling behind. I need to put together a troop of people. I'm not sure what I would do with a troop of people. I mean, the standard campaign is, I don't know, you're supposed to phone bank, you're supposed to do canvassing, and then there's supposed to be this ridiculous amount of money going on. So I don't like the way that American politics is run.
Oh yeah.
I don't like that, people tell me that you're going to have to raise that I'm going to have to raise $500,000 in political campaigns for a job that pays $21,000 a year.
Mm-hmm. Oof. And
yeah, we
using
got
Minigram. Oh, there he is. Hey.
There he is.
Oh, he was there for a second. There you go.
Dragonaut. And also someone else, maybe Troubleshooter. Can you are you able to talk, Dragonaut? Is your mic muted?
Was that him?
Not hearing him.
I saw his picture for 2 seconds, but I don't hear anything from him.
I heard what sounded like background noise of a car. I think he said in the chat that he was in a car.
It looks like he is from the picture I'm seeing, but it's not moving.
Oh, and it just dropped off.
He's resetting.
Oh,
There's
Okay.
Troubleshooter.
Hello.
I believe.
How do you do? What have you got for us?
Not a whole lot at the moment. The only thing that I wanted to sort of throw into the mix here was an action that I was privileged to be able to take not quite a year ago. And that was, hang on one here, let's turn this off for the time being. Would be nice.
There we go.
Anyhow, I'm a Clevelander, and as you may have known, there was this little to-do not quite a year ago at our place involving some people who are not our favorite people in the world, to put it bluntly. You probably know it better as the RNC. And I had a chance to have some input on that, along with our gang at Northern Ohio Free Thought Society, which is an arm of Freedom from Religion Foundation. We put up this billboard. I don't know if anybody's seen it, but it actually made it, I think the Friendly Atheists covered it. I'm fairly sure that not Breitbart, but The Blaze caught it. And the Washington Times. I feel so privileged. The Washington Times, Sung Myung Moon's outfit actually grabbed us and said, "Oh, what is, how dare these guys, throw Ronald Reagan at us?" Because that's what we put up, was a billboard. I don't know as I could patch it up here at the moment, but it basically, what it was a Ronald Reagan quote that says, "Church and state must necessarily remain separate." Now whether anybody actually, saw that, reacted to it, or what at all, but we got our foot in the door, if nothing else. And I mean, a year later, it doesn't seem like it's had that much impact, but I'd like to think at least that something positive came out of that. One thing I can, the other thing, we got local coverage. WKYC covered us. And it was nice to see. Of course, they were covering a lot of other assorted billboards, but we were pretty close to being front and center. And again, it sort of boosted the spirits among us at Northern Ohio Free Thought.
Okay. Anyone want to comment on that?
Yeah, I think anytime that you can put up a billboard that runs counter to expectations. So if you're putting up something that like what you had, the Ronald Reagan quote, or some of the ones that we do with Santa Claus on it saying it's okay to skip church, people look at that and go, "Hey, wait a second, what did that just say?" That's how you get that earned media. It's unfortunate, but it's true that the media is not going to cover just a sort of generically positive message, unfortunately. So you have to play with expectations, and you have to sort of turn something on its head in order to get any attention, and then back that up by doing things like what a lot of our local groups are
exactly
going out and doing the charity stuff once you get your foot in the door to talk about it. So we put up a billboard that says, "Make Christmas great again and skip church." That's funny, and it gets people talking about it. And then I get to go on Fox and Friends and get invited to church by one of the co-hosts, and then be a really nice guy. That's kind of the goal of the whole thing. So
you get invited to Fox and Friends. Why would nobody put me on a show like that? Well, never mind.
Aren't you'd scare them to death.
Yeah.
Come on, God, be fair. Seriously though, one point I wanted to make was when we learned that we were going to go for a billboard, one of the things that I was determined to do, I mean, you've probably seen the FFRF billboard that says, the Kennedy quote, "I believe in an America where the separation of church and state is absolute." I mean, it's a great quote. The problem is it's from a Democrat. And I knew in this business, you had to have a Republican talking to Republicans. And the thing that astonishes me is that when I came down to trying to find something, I just literally pulled up Google and said, "Ronald Reagan Church State." Bang, there was the quote. And I'm sort of going, what? And I fired that off to Annie Laurie Gaylor, and we talked about, well, are we going to have quote rights, whatever have you. We talked to the guys at Clear Channel. They said, run with it. And Lamar, after that, when Lamar got bought by Clear Channel, They said no problem. Board went up. It was up for a month. So we got plenty of good coverage.
All right.
Nice.
Yeah, well, the reason that I said the thing about Fox and Friends is I know why they wouldn't put me on Fox and Friends, because I have a face for radio. But if you want to make atheists look bad, I would put me on there, I would think.
I've had somebody tell me, "Wow, you have a really good radio voice," and I said, "Does that mean I have a good face for radio too?" And they sort of sputtered and were like, "Oh no, that's not what I meant at all." And, I mean, I'll admit it. I don't have a problem with it. Whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Aron, we'll see you in August at our little fun thing. Look forward to seeing you there. And I'm going to bail so somebody else can get it.
What was it? Cayuga, Ohio?
No, it's Cuyahoga Falls. I can't remember the exact site, but it's between Cleveland and Akron. And we're also having Yasmin Mohammed there. Great 1-2 punch going for us. And we hope you have a great time when you get here, and we'll see you soon. And thanks you guys for having me.
All right, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lilandra. Take care.
No problem. Dragonaut, I can see that you're on the chat, but you're unable to talk.
I see a muted icon there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh,
So he's muted?
You might need to unmute your microphone. No, he's still having technical issues. The other two were having technical issues too, so perhaps we could wrap up.
Yeah, if it would be really great if Google Hangouts would just sort of fix this, because I'm encountering this with a lot of our guests can't get on for whatever reason. These stupid error messages and so forth.
Did you try turning your computer on and back on?
We might be slightly past the point where it's appropriate still to say it, but let's just say thanks, Obama. I'm sure he somehow, caused this.
Yeah.
Yeah, Katrina was his fault too.
Yeah, that's true.
After he's dead, he'll be posthumously messing things up.
Yep.
Where was he on 9/11?
Yeah, I think it's funny when I talk to people who vote GOP, when you take all the information for the 8 years of George W. Bush, and you take all the information for the 8 years of Obama, and you have whatever charts appropriate for that, and you walk into the room with somebody who votes GOP, and they just turn all those charts upside down, so that all the trends that were on the rise are now in decline and so forth, and all the information is backwards, and left becomes right. It's very so that Katrina becomes Obama's fault and so forth. It's a most disturbing thing. So I can pull up all the data that I need just in a moment. Well, let's just go to Google and see. You think that the unemployment was worse under Obama than under, you think the economy, was better under Bush than under Obama. Let's just Google it for a half a moment.
Mm-hmm.
And then I get the fingers in the ears thing. I don't want to talk about this. We're not going to Google that. Oh, of course not. Why would I be surprised?
Well, just today, right when we started this, recording this, the press secretary Sean Spicer went out and said that Michael Flynn, the problems with Michael Flynn were Barack Obama's fault.
Was that a joke?
No, I'm completely serious. I am completely serious. Nope.
Wow. Okay.
Okay, and so the crowd for the inauguration really was the biggest ever.
Period. The biggest ever. Period. Don't
Yeah,
forget the period.
and the March for Science and the Women's March were both in praise of Donald Trump.
Yes, I believe that's correct.
They were all paid to go out there.
Well, right. Right. Did you guys not get your paid protester checks?
No, I didn't.
And I'll see it.
I'm waiting for my Soros check, man. Like,
Yeah, you know,
I've
listen,
been to too many protests.
seriously, my first job was working on the campaign in 2008, and the organization I worked for was specifically mentioned by Glenn Beck in one of his giant webs on a chalkboard type things, saying that we were part of a George Soros funded conspiracy. I got to tell you, man, making as little money as I did on that, I think George Soros is running. It's got to be just holding on to all that money, because I didn't get a cent of it. And I've been doing this for a decade now. So, help a brother out, George. Come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Waiting.
All right,
And now
Lilandra, do we have a
we're-
guest on here?
Everybody else had technical issues, so we can wrap up if you like.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to let everybody give a closing comment then. Do I need to name you guys in order?
You want to go, Vicki, or?
Oh, okay. So closing comment on this topic is that we're going to keep doing what we're doing, which is we go out and we volunteer as much as we can, not because we have to, because we love our community and we love helping out. And when it says if you don't have a purpose, atheists don't have a reason to live, I believe that you make your purpose and you make your reasons. And so therefore this group that I'm with, STAR, we go out and we make those reasons, and it's cleaning up our community, it's helping our community, it's feeding our community. And then we also get together and celebrate that every Sunday. We come together and have a family dinner, everybody in the group that can make it, and we're bringing our community even closer together with all of that. So once again, I think that means that we are productive members of society, against what she's saying. But I absolutely look forward to Mayor Ivy coming out and joining us on any of our events that we have invited her to. And hopefully we won't be dealing with her for much longer.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Let's see. I'll go and say that, Ivy Taylor definitely picked the wrong town to make these comments in. When I went to Secular Student Alliance Convention and the Reason Rally and all these other events, I gathered that our area of Texas, the Austin, San Antonio area, is the most saturated in secular organizations. I could start listing all the mouthfuls. But yeah, the SSA, FACT, all the great work that STAR does, but at Lackland, San Antonio Atheists, there's an AAU here. I mean, it was a bizarre and nice coincidence that of all places for somebody to make this comment, they made it into a place where people can organize and prepare a unified response. And just exactly what Vicki said. I hope to see you soon, Ivy. Anytime, any place.
Catch me outside.
But no, I mean, and as civilly and politely as possible, I genuinely want this meeting. I'm not doing this for, or we are not doing this for any rhetorical purpose. In the most real sense, that petition and all the letters that have been sent from American Atheists and local organizations, we mean what we mean. We want that meeting. We've seen all of the we definitely get the gist of her ideology, and we think she definitely has a lot of room for education on lots and lots of communities, including ours.
Very good.
So all in there.
And I'll jump in with my final thought on the issue. Like I said, when this podcast first started, when those comments were made, it really hit me. It was a multifaceted thing. Not only was it a misconception about non-believers themselves based on that comment, but it was also a fundamental misunderstanding of people that experience homelessness and their actual realities that they encounter while they're out there. And so kind of talk about what Sean said, I would really love and enjoy if indeed Ivy Tyler gets reelected and becomes mayor, I would, and even if she didn't, whoever is the mayor subsequent to this election, I would love to have that meeting to talk about those issues that that those just come across, like what led them to that situation, because the profound ignorance in Ms. Taylor's statement, that was one of, like, let alone the atheist portion, that was the most egregious to me, because I've had so many conversations with those out on the street that are experiencing homelessness, that, you know, have dealt with this reality day in and day out. That some of them have faith beliefs, a lot of them do, some of them do not, and they all have unique circumstances that brought them to this particular point in their lives. And to reduce that down to a lack of a relationship with a creator, and assuming she was talking about her specific creator that she believes in, not anyone else's, is just, it's just a gross misrepresentation of their situation. And I would really, because I really want to see cities do more to help those that are experiencing homelessness. Like Vicki had mentioned, where there was 180 plus folks that came to the line in San Antonio this past month. And also we regularly get 150 to 200 per month that goes. So I'll be doing that on this coming Sunday, another giveaway. And it's just so much need, and there's so many things that we could be doing to help if we would but take the time to invest, to examine the issues and start addressing those issues, and actually you know, putting our money where our mouth is, saying that it's actually worth it to invest a little bit of money to this. So whoever the mayor is, I would love to sit down and talk about some of the problems that those experiencing homeless that I actually talk to and have conversations with actually deal with, so we can start doing a little more to help. Like, for instance, getting a public restroom facility that people can use. You know, no IDs, no documents required. Even the Haven for Hope is not a public restroom facility. You cannot use it. It's just little things like that. A water fountain, just a public water fountain. You know, nothing crazy. It can be done. It takes a little bit of money, a little bit of maintenance and upkeep, but it's worth it. You know, our friends and neighbors that we see around are worth it. And if we don't address the issue head on and actually analyze the issues versus coming up with useless platitudes that we use for political gain or just out of sheer ignorance, then those problems won't be solved. They won't be addressed. And the amount of aid that we can offer will be limited until we actually sit there and examine what's going on with an open mind and an objective mind, looking at the evidence of the reality around them that these folks face. So,
yeah, the thing that I'll just piggyback on, and I think you guys have all sort of summed it up really well. The one thing that I just want to add here is this is why it's important for us to insist that politicians show their work, even when they arrive at policy outcomes that we may like. You know, I don't know too much about Ivy Taylor's record on poverty issues. According to her and according to some of the sources that I've read, her record has been pretty good on some of these issues, but they undercut it. They undermine success that they've made by just like what you said, insisting on an overly simplistic religious explanation for things. We need to insist that politicians frame everything that they're doing in a context that's accessible to everybody, regardless of their shared religious faith or lack of shared religious faith or whatever. We need to look at the data. We can't just say, well, God wants me to house the homeless and feed the hungry, so we should house the homeless and feed the hungry. We do those things because they're the right thing to do, but we also do those things because when you're looking at government, they save money in the long run. Making an investment of a little bit of money now saves tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars later. That's why it's important that we insist on seeing the data, insist on looking at the numbers, and unfortunately, too many politicians don't do that. And until we can insist upon that, then we're sort of flailing around in the dark here. And the other thing, just to close up here, people can do good works and we can agree on policy. And I don't know that I agree with Ivy Taylor on a lot of policy or on all policy, but when they say things that are detrimental or that are denigrating to members of the community, that's part of the job. communicating your priorities and communicating, you know, your representation of an entire community. That's part of the gig. When you're signing up to be the mayor, you're signing up to be the mayor of everyone, not just of evangelical Christians. So you can't just hide behind your quote unquote record and say that we're distorting your views because your record. The things you say and the beliefs you have about, you know, who is about broken people, that's part of your record. And if you're not willing to stand behind that, then you know, maybe you should rethink the game that you're in.
All right.
Wait a
Anybody
second.
else?
Did Vicki have something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, she started, and she was
Wait,
hard act to
I
follow.
have something then. I'd like to say that to Ivy Taylor that there, just like Christians, there are good atheists and bad atheists. You can't really say that all of a group is broken people, or that even she was saying a broader group even than atheists. She was saying people who don't have Jesus are broken people, and the poor are broken people. But I just speaking as an atheist who doesn't have a relationship with the Creator, there's lots of good atheists, and there's good Christian politicians too. We went to a Bernie Sanders rally, and there was a man speaking named Michael Blake, the vice chair of the DNC. He's a pastor, he said, and he said that he would stand up, and he mentioned specifically non-believers. So we're your constituents. We're at least 20% of the population. We're a larger population than a lot of groups that have a larger voice than ours in politics. Get to know us.
And this without even mentioning that Mayor Ivy doesn't have a relationship with her Creator, because there is no such thing. I just have to throw that out there. She doesn't have a relationship with him either. Nobody does. Lots of people think they do. Hindus, there are a lot of Hindus who think they have a relationship with Krishna. They really do. And I've met Muslims who think that they have a personal relationship with Allah. Sorry. No, it's just a bunch of people making claims.
And she was also insulting to people that are religious. She's telling them that they're not close enough with their Creator, or they're not doing their religion right. So she was offensive to a lot of people for a lot of reasons.
Yep.
And I will just leave that there. And you know, I have to express somehow that the only possibility, as I see it, is merely my opinion. All right, I'm going to close it out. Anybody have anything else to say? You got a few seconds. 5, 4,
Sign
3.
petition.
Give me some work to do, Nick.
We're gone. Good night.